About a decade ago, I got real sick when I was in Thailand. We were on our way to a temple in the middle of nowhere. I needed to see a doctor, but I worried about finding one and what it would cost. But we quickly found a clinic. I got the medicine I needed and was on my way to recovery. That clinic was a lifesaver, and it didn't really cost that much. I'm reminded of this when thinking about Pokemon Red and how every town had a Pokemon Center. A place that was clean, calm, and comforting, where healing was fast and always free. It wasn't just a building, it was a ritual. You walked in, the music changed, and someone was there. Always kind, always ready to make everything better. No payment, no forms, just rest and recovery. That idea has always stuck with me, long after I stopped needing trading cables to evolve a Kadabra. So today, I'm imagining what a Pokemon Center might look like if it existed in our world. Not a theme park attraction, not a cosplay store, but a real piece of architecture. A place that supports rest, care, and recovery, designed with both intention and warmth. I'll be sketching, modeling, rendering, and walking through the final concept, all while reflecting on how imagined spaces can influence the ones we actually build. Before I jump into modeling, I always start with loose sketches. Not to find the final form, but to begin asking questions. What spaces would a real Pokemon Center actually need? We know from the games that there's always a healing counter up front, where a nurse welcomes you. But if this were real, we'd also need a lounge or a waiting area, a quiet zone for Pokemon to rest if they're staying overnight, and perhaps a small retail area, the Pokemart, for picking up supplies. There should be a terminal to manage your Pokemon digitally, of course, and I'd imagine a small staff support area as well. Maybe if we stretch the logic of the world a bit, we can include some short-term sleeping rooms for traveling trainers, like a cross between a clinic and a hostel. I start roughing out the layout with those pieces in mind. The healing area sits at the center of the plan, like the hearth of a building. From there, the lounge sits near the front, and the Pokemart and PC terminal on either side. Behind the healing zone, I imagine a cluster of quiet recovery rooms, with access to a private courtyard where Pokemon could get some fresh air while they heal. The trainer rest area, if included, would be placed above, more secluded from the busy public zones, but with visibility to the healing areas. As I sketch, I'm not thinking about game accuracy. I'm thinking about how it feels to need healing, and how space can quietly support that. Once I have a loose spatial diagram, I move into modeling. I'm using Revit here to build up the core geometry and test proportions. The building's massing is kept intentionally approachable, almost like a wellness pavilion. I've designed a canopy that reaches out from the main structure, creating a gentle threshold that invites you inward. A subtle nod to the open-air Pokémon Centers from the Paldea region, but translated into something grounded in real-world materials and structural logic. Inside, the ceiling is broken into floating, curved planes, something that diffuses light and defines zones without closing the space off completely. The healing pods sit directly next to the counter and on the way to the outdoor courtyard. I've placed the lounge to the east side to catch soft morning light and tucked the recovery rooms toward the rear, where privacy and quiet can be more easily preserved. I also decided to model a Pokeball wall light to greet you as you enter, because why not? I couldn't just put any healing pod in there, it had to feel custom. So here I'm opening 3D Studio Max and custom modeling a Pokemon healing pod. I'm imagining it as a sphere that glows, but still feels comfortable inside. As I model, I keep coming back to one idea. This isn't just about function, it's about trust. People and Pokemon would come to the space when they're not at their best. That means the space has to hold them gently. It has to offer comfort without being too sterile. It should have clarity without being cold. Now that the form is set, I shift my focus to materials. The textures, finishes, and colors that would define the emotional tone of the building. I've kept the classic red and white palette, but softened it. The red appears in accent shelving, signage, lighting, not in the walls or roofs. The walls themselves are rendered in a smooth, clean, white surface. Floors are light terrazzo, with embedded flecks that shimmer just slightly in the sun. The ceilings and doors are wrapped in warm birchwood veneer to bring in a sense of nature and calm. The healing stations, or pods, are made from smooth, frosted acrylic. When activated, they glow softly from within, their light reacting subtly to the presence of a Pokeball or a patient Pokemon. I wanted them to feel advanced but not alien, more wellness pod than sci-fi tech. Indoor greenery is integrated throughout. A moss wall behind the lounge bench, potted plants in the marked corner, and ferns near the trainer restroom. Each recovery room has access to the small enclosed courtyard, which I filled with soft stone raised planters and filtered sunlight through wooden slats. This isn't a hospital, it's a sanctuary. And in a world where people often rush from one moment to the next, I think we need more sanctuaries. Let's look at some final renderings. From the outside, the building almost recedes into its environment. It doesn't shout, but rather waits quietly. The entry path is framed with native plants, and the canopy gently shades visitors as they approach. Glass panels reflect just enough to create a sense of separation, like stepping into another rhythm. Inside, the first thing you see is the healing counter. The wall light floats behind, casting a soft glow, almost like a halo behind the nurse. Above the desk, ceiling panels help acoustically isolate the space so conversations feel more private. On the right of the building, the lounge area stretches along a glass wall, filled with comfortable seating, quiet lighting, and a digital announcement board for local trainer events. On the opposite side, the Pokemon PC terminal sits in a small nook off the lounge, entered through a secure door. To the right of the check-in, the Pokemart section is stocked with practical gear, first aid kits, energy snacks, and camping supplies, as well as some trinkets. But it's designed to feel more like a minimal lifestyle store than a themed gift shop. In the back, the recovery rooms are calm and quiet. Each one includes a padded sleeping platform, light control settings, and a full-height window facing the courtyard. The whole space is designed to slow you down. Let's take a walk through the space. Imagine you've just finished a long journey. You've been hiking for hours, your Pokemon are worn out, and the sun is starting to dip below the ridge. You walk into the Pokémon Center. You're greeted not with a clipboard, but with eye contact and a smile. You place your Pokeballs on the healing pod. The light begins to glow. You take a seat in the lounge, and for the first time in hours, you breathe deeply. The room smells faintly of cedar and mint. Your partner Pokemon curls up beside you. Somewhere in the courtyard, a bird Pokemon lets out a quiet chirp. The wind rustles through the planter beds. You're not battling anymore. You're resting, and that's okay. Pokemon has always been a world of adventure, catching, training, pushing yourself. But it's also a world of care. The Pokemon Center represents that. It's the one space that never asks anything of you. It simply helps. And I think that idea, that healing can be gentle, freely given, and designed into our everyday environments, is something we could learn from, even outside of video games. This project wasn't meant to be game accurate. It was meant to be emotionally accurate, to explore how the feeling of a Pokemon Center might translate into real-world architecture. Thank you for coming with me on this little thought experiment. If you enjoyed it, feel free to share it or leave a comment. I'd love to hear how you would design your own version. And if you want to see more speculative projects like this, whether it's a Pokemon gym, Star Wars retreat, something totally original, consider subscribing or support the channel on Patreon. I share behind-the-scenes work, render files, and extra concept sketches there. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your team, stay curious, and design with intent.